All right, you guys, as you can see by the thumbnail, I'm back with another one like the other one. So check it out. Earlier, my boy called me and he dropped this banger on me right here. I'm going to try to get this one out along with an inner demon because I know some of you have been waiting for the next episode of Inner Demons. We'll see. Hopefully the powers that be with us are with us. I got my workout done. I got everything done, but I'm still behind the game. Anyways, this story right here, it involves Chato from Verne, a Mexican mafia member that I previously told a story about. And then it briefly mentions another Mexican mafia member by the name of Raul from Wilmas. Now, all these stories got some cold twists to them. This story right here is no different. A lot of them, you guys can see the common denominator is dope. Dope seems to be involved in all these stories. And like every one of these stories, dope is the reason why a lot of these guys end up getting caught up. It's either for bringing it in, for not bringing it in, for not bringing a certain amount, or for, just something surrounding dope. And it just goes to show you that's where the priorities are at, is bringing in dope. I understand. Dope, that's how they make their money out there. And money for these criminal organizations, it's everything. To become self-solvent, to become self-supporting out there on these main lines, to be able to feed yourself, to be able to take care of your people. It's an essential part of being locked up, especially for a criminal organization. The problem is that dope, it seems like, is not only the priority, but it seems like, they're willing to eat their own people, to hit their own people whenever there's any kind of interference, or whenever, something goes wrong with dope. That just goes to show how much emphasis is placed on it. Anyways, so this story right here, it involves a guy named Pelon. Pelon from Porterville. He's a Sureño. He has a big P on the top of his head, but he's a Sureño from Porterville. And, he's been out there on the yard for a while. He's been out there functioning. He's doing his thing out there. He's active, actively in the mix out there. But, there's a difference. You got guys that are out there that are slinging dope. They're out there getting their grind on, and they're trying to make money. They're trying to ball. They're trying to have everything, anything and everything they can have out there. Gold, jewelry, TV, a super tuner. I don't even know if they have those anymore. Radios, they're trying to have everything that they can have. Bonnaroo, sweats, thermals, all that good stuff. But then you got these other guys out there that they're just slinging a little bit of dope, just enough just to get by, just enough to support themselves, so that they don't have to put that burden on their wife, or an old lady, or their loved ones, their family. So they're just barely slinging a little bit of dope, maybe to help pay for when their lady does come up and visits. She's got to come up, she's got to drive. A lot of the times it's hundreds and hundreds of miles. She has to get a room, so you got to pay for the hotel, you got to pay for the gas, you got to pay for everything that's involved in taking that long trip. So a lot of the times these guys might sling a little bit of dope so that they can send it back to their girl to help fund the visits, and to just put a little bit of money in their pockets just to take care of themselves. Believe it or not, there's a lot of guys that are out there on these main lines like that are just trying to make enough money, just, to go to canteen, to get, the bare essentials, the things that they need, their hygiene, to, have a little bit of, extra money on their books to get things that they need. Things come up, a lot of the times they, if it's not canteen, just there's luxuries that they can take advantage of if they have a little bit of money. And it's a big burden. I used to hate, when I was locked up, I used to hate asking for money from my family, my mom, my girl. At one time when she got pregnant, she had the baby, and I didn't want her to send no money, because I felt like I was taking away from the baby. So there's a lot of guys like that. They want to take that burden off of their families. And a lot of times they'll even go without. If you don't have a hustle, you don't know how to tattoo, you don't know how to make some type of, hobby craft or something like that, whatever. But there's a lot of different things that you can do out there to get your hustle on. But one thing that I'm starting to realize, something that's starting to become, evident, is that it seems like a lot of these guys that are out there on these yards, different yards, because we've talked about different prisons, is that these guys are purposely starting to limit the frequency of their visits. And there's a reason why. You know, if you're somebody that's out there and you get a visit maybe once every 3 weeks, maybe once a month, there's probably nothing for you to worry about. But it seems like they're on top of the visiting. They're watching who's getting visits, the frequency of it, the consistency. And, you know, if you're somebody that's consistently getting a visit every week, religiously, on the money like clockwork, then you're somebody that's more than likely going to be approached and propositioned. And that's probably why a lot of these guys, they purposely tell their family, you know what, don't come up here. I used to always, you know, tell my people not to come up to Pelican Bay because it was too damn far to drive 300, 400, 500 miles just to come up there for an hour. And then, you know, all the expenses that come with it. That's why I would tell them not to even worry about coming up. But a lot of these guys, they, you know, they're smart. They seen what the routine was. You know, if I'm somebody that's constantly getting a visit, they're gonna hit me up. They probably tell me, you know what, don't even worry about coming up every week. It just, there's reasons why, but you know, just trust me. It's better that you come up every 3 weeks or you know, once a month. You know, you got a lot of women that like to come up, you know, once a week. They're insisting on coming up because they need that. They need to come up and they need to connect with their man. But I imagine that even in light of that, a lot of these guys were probably telling their ladies, you know what, you know, I know you want to come up and I know you want to bring the kids or whatever, and I know you want to see me, but right now there's a lot going on, and it's just better that you limit, you know, the amount of times that you come up here. You know, just come up every once a month. That's good enough. You know, as long as I get to see you and, you know, we get that and I get to see the kids, it's all good. So again, you know, that seems to be like a big thing, is that these guys are trying to control the regularity and the consistency of, you know, how often that they get visits, because they don't want to get put in that situation where they have to run dope. There's a lot of guys out there that don't want to run it in. They're not running it in for themselves. They sure don't want to run it in for the organization or for the big homies. You know, they're good with just tattooing or whatever they're doing out there, however they're getting their hustle on. So whether it was under the pretext of, you know, you got a visitor that seems to come up consistently, or, you know, under the pretext of, you know, hey, we need you to do this for the casa, for the house. You know, we need somebody that's coming up, you know, consistently, and right now you're the only one. So, you know, I'm sure that they would appeal to somebody like that and, you know, make it seem like this is for the better cause, a bigger cause, when in actuality it's just, you know, just to bring in the dope, just to get the dope in. I'm sure they want to sling it, they want to sell it, but there's a lot of cats that they want that dope so that they can use that shit, so they can get loaded. So Pelon, he had the kind of wife that, you know, it didn't matter that he was telling her, look, you know, you don't got to come up once a month. She was the type of woman that was insistent on coming up. It didn't matter what he told her. She'd be up there the next week anyway. And, you know, a lot of the times when she would come up, it would just be for the purpose of visiting with them, bringing up the kids. She was the type of woman that wanted her kids to bond and to, you know, to get to know their father. She didn't want a father to her children, you know, once a month. She wanted them to interact with them as much as possible. So, you know, again, she was the type of woman that's all she has out there. She might have been working a job. She might have been, you know, she's not going out. She's not really doing nothing because her man's locked up. And this is all she's got. So she's coming up every chance she gets. And that's what she was doing. Again, Pelon was one of those guys that he got dope occasionally, but it was just for the purpose of supporting himself, just to make a little bit of extra bread so that, you know, he could support himself. It wasn't about getting dope every visit. A lot of the times, most of the time when she would come up, she wouldn't have no dope. It wouldn't be about that. But nonetheless, the forces that are lurking, they see consistency. They see what's going on. And, you know, that's something that he was going to have to contend with. So for selfish reasons, she's coming up. Everything's cool for a good minute. I imagine they probably had their own resources out there on the yard. You know, things are always happening out there. Somebody goes to the hole, somebody gets transferred out, they lose somebody, and then you got to, you know, open up another resource. So she's coming up for selfish reasons. She wants him to see the kids, and she agrees, you know, to occasionally bring him a bag so that, you know, he can take care of himself. She's that type of hyena that she understands the situation. So You know, everything's going cool for a good minute. And when you think about it, it's crazy. She's a trooper because from Porterville to Ironwood, that's a good 6, 7, 8 hour drive. I'm not sure how many hours it is, but it's a nice drive. It's not, 2, 3 hours. It's a good drive. So, she's that type of highness. She's a trooper. She was coming up there religiously every week to see him. But here's the thing. So according to the policies that were being implemented on the yard at that time, anybody that was bringing in clavo, their own personal clavo, they had the way that they were doing it was the kickback percentage was a third of whatever was coming in. If they were bringing in 2, 3 ounces, they got a third of that. If they were just bringing in a half ounce or an ounce, they get a third of that. Initially, that's the way it was, is that they would take a third of it off the top. And, from my understanding, they weren't hounding these guys. They were trusting them. If they told, if they reported that they were bringing in 2 ounces, it wasn't like they were shaking them down saying, hey, let me see. They would take their word for it. So you brought in 2 ounces. Okay, well, 2 ounces, a third of that is this right here. So, that's how it was in the beginning. But as time went on, things started to change. That dragon's no joke. It's treacherous. It started to get more greedier and more greedier. It went from that, eventually it went from taking a third of whatever you got to the point of they were being required to, whenever they would hit clavo out there, what would happen was they would come out, out of the visiting room, they would hit the yard. Somebody out there would intercept them at some point, whether they let them go back to the building, I don't know. But at some point, they would have to turn over the entire clavo, everything that they had. They would have to turn it over, give it to them, and then they'd have to go back and wait for them to take a third out. So, these guys, you talk about locking down the numbers and controlling the market. This is at its finest right here. So can you imagine, you got your lady coming up, she's bringing in clavo, she's taking all these chances, you're taking chances, she's got kids. You know what happens when they bust a female like that trying to bring in dope. They're going to take her kids. It's the first thing that they go for because they know we take her kids, she's gonna start talking. A mother's love for her kids is unconditional. So just imagine that you got your lady agreeing to do this and you guys are taking these chances. It's bad enough as it is, but then you gotta come out of the visiting room. You gotta forfeit your clavo. You gotta wait for them to give you back your clavo and let them decide on what is a third of it. That's just crazy, man. I can imagine some dudes were probably like, man, while they were on standby waiting for these dudes to give back their clavo, I don't know if I'm sure there's some of you that have hit, when you get clavo in and you go through the changes that you have to go through in order to get it in, that shit, you'll take it personal. It's like, man, I can imagine the feeling. Me, myself, I don't know if I could deal with that. You know what I mean? Having to cough up my dough. I'm lightweight. I would lightweight feel like I'm getting punked straight up, like I'm getting punked for my shit. But those were the policies, and they had to conform to those policies. There's no debating it. You can't say, hey, this is wrong. None of that. If you push back like that, you're just gonna get hit, rolled up, DP'd, or like the common term that I'm learning is put on concrete status. So, these guys, they either decided like, you know what, I'm not even going to deal with all that and just shut it down, or they had to conform and comply with it. So a lot of them did, and Pelon was one of them. That's what you call taxation at its finest. But like I said, what they were really doing is they were controlling the kickback percentage themselves. They were controlling it so that they were the ones that set the numbers. They were the ones that were regulating the market, and they were hands-on about it. Either that, or for whatever reason, maybe they started to have trust issues with individuals that said that they were getting an ounce in, really when they were getting like 3 ounces in. Whatever prompted them to make that move, they made that move. From trusting these guys to give up a third of their dope to, just give us the whole clavo and we'll go ahead and chop off what we think is a third, and you just go ahead and kick on back, stay on standby, and we'll get back with you. We'll give you shit when we're done chopping it up. But it only gets better. Like they say, when it rains, it pours. It only continued to get better for these guys. So when they came back and gave you your clavo, after they took their third, apparently what was happening is then they would tell you, you know what, before you sell any of your clavo, we got to get off of all of ours first. So just stand by until we sell all our shit. Then you can sell yours first. And what they were doing was they were telling these guys that you can't sell like grams or, you know, half grams or nothing like that. The most that they were allowing them to sell was $50 papers. That's the most they were allowing them to sell on the yard. And again, this is all about controlling the market, setting the numbers and regulating the market. And that's exactly what they were doing. Now, the other thing that they weren't allowed to do at that time in this prison right here at that time, and I imagine maybe this probably changed over time, is that they weren't allowing them to do business with the Africanos. I don't know why. You know, usually those lines are open. But, you know, my guess is that maybe something happened. Maybe there was an incident where somebody felt like they got cheated, or maybe there was an incident where somebody didn't get paid. They ended up getting rolled up, taken off the yard. So from that point on, they were like, you know what, there's no more business being done with them, you know, to avoid, you know, a repeat situation. That's my guess. It wasn't nothing racial. It wasn't nothing like that. From my understanding, it was just because, you know, of a misunderstanding that had previously happened out there. But they were being told not to do no business with the Africanos. Again, maybe this was some kind of caveat, you know, some kind of security caveat that that they were implementing so that, you know, they were avoiding another incident happening out there. I don't know. But, you know, the thing was, is if you got caught doing it, you would either get hit, you would have to pay a hefty fine, or you would get put on concrete status and red flagged. Again, concrete status is a term that I'm hearing a lot. Those were the recognized terms that they were using out there: concrete status or being red flagged. The other thing is, if you ran a debt up that exceeded $200 and you didn't pay it on time, you didn't pay it back on time, you were susceptible to all that good stuff, either being fined, either being hit, or concrete or red flagged. So Pelon from Porterville, he's out there, he's doing his thing, he's selling a little bit of dope, he's getting his visits, everything's cool for a good minute. And then at some point, they proposition him, they approach him and they tell him, they're like, look, check this out, homie. The big homie's got a proposition for you. I don't even think Chato from Verne or Raul from Wilmas approached him themselves. They sent buffers over there, somebody to relay the message. So they say, you know, the big homies, they got a proposition for you. And, you know, the proposition is, if you bring in the big homies dope, if you bring it in for them, whatever you bring in, you're not going to be required to kick back nothing on that. All you got to do is just bring the big homies in when you bring yours in. You know, and this is something that, you know, we kind of need you to do right now for the CASA. This is something that we don't really have any other routes that are, you know, secure right now. And this is something that you can do. You know, you'll be embraced. You know, you'll have no issues out here. You know, a lot of benefits. There'll be a lot of perks that come with this, man. So, you know, if you bring the homies dope in, you know, you'll have your thing. You can continue to sell your dope out there. You can sell half grams, whatever. You know, we're not going to limit you to selling $50 papers. You don't have to wait. You're going to have a lot more privileges. So, you know, they sweetened it up for him. They made it sound like, you know, this was a super good deal for him, and that this was something that he should definitely do, you know, so that he can come up and, you know, have a little bit of extra money, have a little bit of extra dope, and you wouldn't have to worry about them sweating them. So Pelon, he tells him, he's like, look, man, he's like, let me think about it. He's like, let me kick it around. Let me smoke it over tonight. You know, I'm going to call my girl later on tonight. Let me make sure that, you know, she's good with it, you know, because you guys got to remember, this was the mother of his children. This is his baby's mama. This isn't, you know, Sancha, his girl. This isn't, you know, a sidekick. This is the mother of his kids. And a lot of guys, they feel different about that. When it's the mother of their children, they're like, nah, man, you know, kind of like I told you guys before in some of my stories, I never involved my lady or family because I always knew that once you do that, you put them in harm's way. You might not see it at the time, but once they're involved and they cross that line, they're in harm's way, not just, you know, not just because they have knowledge about certain things. And if somebody tells, you know, they also fall up under that umbrella of suspicion, not just because of that, but, you know, once they do something like this, then, you know, they're expected to keep on doing it, you know, and there's just a lot of different things that come along with it that you put them in harm's way. So, you know, Pelon, I'm sure he felt like because he had kids with her that he wanted to make sure she was okay with it. You know, you guys already know, man, women are bossy. So, you know, sometimes it's not the fact that he was getting permission from her, but, you know, he was giving her that respect. You know what I mean? So he tells him, let me holler at her, you know, give me till tomorrow and I'll let you guys know. Needless to say, he came back and he told him, you know what, it's good, man. It's good. I'll do it. You know, but the one mistake that he made was not asking them, like, how much do I got to bring in? How much do I got to bring in? What is it? You know, he didn't ask nothing like that. He just agreed to bring it in, which is, that's a bad mistake because he left himself wide open. What if it's 30 ounces? What if it's 30 pedazos? And he's got to bring this in over the course of 6 months. You know, they could have okey-doked him and told him, hey, well, you already committed to it. And once you give your word to, you know, to individuals like this, it doesn't matter that these weren't, you know, the C's, the carnals out there. It doesn't matter. Once you agree to something like this, you're obligated. They're going to say, no. You obligated yourself. Boy, you should have thought about that. You said that you were going to do it, so you already committed to it. That's just the way it is. But again, that was a huge mistake. You would think that Pelon would ask, you know, how much, or he would ask some kind of questions just to cover himself, you know, because obviously if Pelon was expecting these guys to be conservative or, you know, to be courteous about the amount that they were talking about, he messed up. Obviously, you know, if that's what he was thinking, shame on him. Because in situations like that, they're always going to want as much as possible. One more ounce of this, one more ounce of that, maybe a little bit more of this, a little bit more. Once they have an opportunity to get something in, it's like pack it all the way out, as much as you can, as many as you can possibly get in. So again, he left himself wide open, and that again right there, it would obviously hurt him. So now, like I told you guys, Pelon, he was from Porterville, Sureño from Porterville, upstater. He was from Porterville, and you know, Porterville is not close to LA. It's a good minute away. So instead of these guys driving this all the way out to Porterville, driving all the way out to the valley, what they did is they shipped it off to her via mail, via postal. They put it in a package, shipped it out to her, put it in the mail, and that's how they got it to her. So she gets the package. Eventually, she gets the package. It lands. She gets it. She opens it up, and there's like, I want to say there was like 3 ounces. I believe the first run was like 3 ounces. This right here is a lot more than she's ever brought in. She was bringing Pelon like a half ounce, maybe, you know, an ounce at the most, but never did she bring in 3 ounces. So she gets it and she's like, the hell am I supposed to do with all this? Damn, that's a lot, you know, compared to what she's normally used to bringing in. So she's tripping. She's like, this is a lot. So later on that night, Pelon calls her and, you know, she's like, babe, she's like, what the hell is all this? She was like, you know, I thought we were just going to run something in with ours. She's like, this is a lot. There's a lot. How much did they tell you that they were bringing in? She goes, because compared to what I bring you, she's like, this is, I don't know if I can bring all this in. You know what I mean? So he's like, well, he's like, it's just a one-time thing. You know what I mean? So don't trip. Like, you know, maybe we'll just do it over the course of 2 days, Saturday and Sunday. So anyway, she's a trooper. She makes it happen. She doesn't want to deal with it on Sunday, so she makes it happen. She takes the 3 plus whatever she's bringing Pelon. They run the first clavo, they run it in. So he comes out the visiting room. When he's out there on the yard, he finds whatever contact person that, you know, he was dealing with, and he gives him the dope. and that goes to Chato and Raul from Wilmas. So they get their 3 ounces and they're happy because this is more than they've been able to get for a while. So this is going to hold them for, a good little minute, not, for months and months, but it'll hold them for a few weeks. So they get it. They're happy. They're like, hey, man, you did good. Do your thing. Whatever you brought in, that's yours. You keep it. However you want to sling it out here on the yard, go ahead, man. You got full access to whatever you want to do. You got the key to the yard, homeboy. So he's out there, he's getting his hustle on, he's doing his thing, and a week goes by, his girl comes back up, and he's kind of like, he's getting a fever now because he wants his girl to bring up some more because he doesn't have to worry about kickbacks now. So he tells his girl the next week, hey, bring in some more. So she's bringing in more. The following week, she brings in another clavo that comes in. Everything's good. Everything's copacetic. The third week, he gets another clavo. So she's telling him, like, you're doing too much. Hey, kick back for a couple weeks now. So, this guy, he's got everything he needs now. He's got a cell full of canteens, Zuzus, Wham Whams. He's got a Walkman, a TV, a radio, super tuner. He's got everything. And he still got clavo because he just brought it in 3 weeks in a row. This is more than he's had in a while. But big mistake. Big mistake. Meanwhile, Chato and Raul, they got their 3 ounces and they've been doing their thing for a while. And it's not that they gave this guy a break. It's not that they gave Pelon a break on the kickbacks. They just, they kind of overlooked it because they still had clavo and they were doing what they were doing. So now that their clavo's gone, it's not that, again, that they gave Pelon a break. And, they've been seeing them hit these last couple of weeks, but they've been so focused on what they were doing, slinging their dope, that they're not tripping on them right now, or they were just giving them a little bit of rope. Because what ends up happening is, they're probably out there, they probably had people on the yard watching who was getting visits. So, they're keeping tabs. So when their well ran dry, when they're out of their 3 ounces, what they did was, what do you think they did? What do you guys think they did? I bet you guys, none of you guessed it. What they did is they packaged up another package and they just shipped it to his lady. They shipped it straight to the same address that they shipped the first package to. So his lady, she's out there. Obviously, she gets the mail and she sees that it's an address that she recognized being that same address that she got that last clavo for. So she's kind of like, what the hell? She's like, I'm not expecting nothing. Nobody told me nothing. So she opens it up and there's like 6 or 8 ounces in there. Now, there's, like I said, once that pipeline opened up and there was, a way to get it in, I imagine that they were probably like, you know what? Maybe 4 ounces. They got a hold of 4 ounces out there. Then they managed to get a hold of another 4. And they're like, whatever we can get in, we're going to get in. So just send it all to her. And once she has it, it's got to come in. So that's probably what they did. Like I said, I know from experience in the past that when a pipeline opens up like this, when you get action or access at, getting something to somebody to have it brought in, maybe they tell you like 2 or 3 ounces or something like that. And you try to put in a little bit more and a little bit more, and maybe you try to squeeze that in and try to squeeze this in. You're trying to get as much as you can for your bang. And that's probably what they were doing. It's probably what they were doing. It makes absolute sense. So she gets this dope and there's 8 ounces and now she's pissed off. She's like, fuck that. I'm not bringing all this dope and this shit's getting out of hand now. She's laying in the cuts waiting for Pelon to call. She's literally sitting by the phone. She's probably like, when I get this motherfucker on the phone, I'm going to let him have it. I don't know what the fuck he's thinking. So when he calls her, she's livid. She's like, what the fuck is this? He's like, what are you talking about? She's like, babe, I got a package from that same address that I got that last package from. She's like, there's a stupid amount of dope in there. She's like, I'm not bringing all this shit in. You're fucking crazy. She's like, why didn't you tell me that they were going to send all this? He's like, what are you talking about? I didn't know that they were going to send it. Are you serious? Somebody sent something to the house. And she's like, I'm telling you. She's, I'm looking right at it. She's like, it's from the same address, the same people. It's the same writing. She was like, it's the same people. It's your people. So he's like, babe, I don't know what's going on. I would never disrespect you like that. I would never just have somebody send something to the house, especially, that's where my kids are at. He's like, let me find out what's up. I'll find out and I'll get back at you. He's like, I don't care what you find out. She's like, I'm not bringing this in. This is getting crazy. She's like, I'm not even fucking bringing you in nothing anymore for yourself. She's like, I'm done. So, he's tripping now. They're arguing, they're fighting. It's a common thread. I've told you guys other stories where the same thing happened. I want to say it was with Osito, but I can't remember. Anyway, so she's all pissed off. At one point, Pelon, he goes out to the yard. He gets at whoever the contact guy is. He's like, hey, man, he goes like, my lady, she got a package. He's like, I'm assuming that it's from you guys. It's from the same address. He's like, man, why would somebody send a package over there without getting at me? He's like, come on, man. He's like, that's the mother of my children. And they're like, well, why would you get dope in without reporting it? Who do you think you are? Why do you think it's cool for you to do that? You know the rules. You're supposed to let us know anytime you get dope in there, and you're supposed to, a third of that is supposed to go to the casa. So what do you think you're doing? And Pelon was like, I thought we had an arrangement. And they told Pelon, they're like, hey, man, that was one and done. What are you talking about? That was a one-time thing. You really think that this was going to be for the duration of the time you're here or something, that you were just going to be allowed to continue to hit dope for the rest of the time you were here, and that you weren't going to be required to kick back to the house? Bro, you're tripping. You're tripping, man. So at this point now, Pelon can't refuse. He can't. His lady got the dope. She's got it in hand. There's no way that they're going to accept her mailing it back. It might even be a decoy, the return address. So he's stuck in a bad position right now. He's in a precarious situation. He's got to convince his lady now to bring that dope in. There's no other way around it. He can't, go back to Chato's people or Raul's people and tell them, hey, it's too hot. My lady, she's not wanting to do it. It's going to fall on deaf ears. And I'm pretty sure Pelon might not have been the smartest individual, but he's smart enough to at least know that much. So he calls his lady and, he tells her, he's like, babe, look, I'm sorry. He's like, I had no idea. I kind of got myself in a jam. I should have asked. I assumed something. And because of that, now I'm stuck in a bad situation. He's like, look, do me a favor. He's like, we'll make this the last time. Bring it in. And, once we bring this in and, I get it to him, I'm going to tell him I'm done. I'm done. You're the mother of my kids. I don't want to continue to do this. I got to worry about, my kids getting caught up now. So, just bring it in and, we'll be done with it. I promise you. So, the other thing he tells his lady is that, he doesn't want to bring this dope in over the course of like 3 different visits, 3 separate weeks. There's anywhere, I believe it was 6 ounces. So he wants to bring all 6 of those ounces up in 1 week. He's like, you know what? Bring the first 3 on Saturday. He goes into straight beast mode. Bring the first 3 Saturday and bring the second 3 on Sunday. And, at first she doesn't even know if she can do it. She's like, I'm not sticking all that dope up in me. I'm not putting 3 ounces in me. But at the end of the day, she's a trooper. Like I said, she ended up doing it. She knew that her man was in a bad situation. And, I'm pretty sure she's willing to do whatever she could to help. So she went ahead and she took it like a champ and she brought it in. She brought the first 3 in and it went without incident. He gets the first 3. And then that Sunday, she ended up bringing the second 3. And that came in without incident. So he gives them their dope and, they're happy now. But what do you think happened after that? They were like, damn, this boy brought in 6 ounces in 1 week. Oh, it's on and cracking now. So you guys got to understand, Pelon was described as being like the Paisa type. He had an accent. He's always out there on the soccer field playing soccer with the Paisas. And he just wasn't that sharp of an individual. And, this is not coming from me. This is coming from my boy that told me this story. Being that Pelon was an upstater, it didn't help his situation at all. because, according to him, the upstaters, some of them, they did get treated a little different. Not all of them, because he said, you know what, there were some solid ass upstaters, some good homies that earned their right to be in the positions that they were in. Solid homeboys. A lot of them were a lot, more solid than a lot of, sureños down south. But, Pelon wasn't one of them. He wasn't the sharpest kind of individual. So now that these guys, now that they realize that Pelon is able to bring in 6 ounces in 1 week, they were probably like, you know what, send that motherfucker half a kilo. Send a half a kilo over there. Send a half a kilo and, have her bring that in, have them run that in. Now, on the series, they exposed their hand. Pelon exposed his hand. He basically let it be known that he could bring in that much clavo. So from that point on, they basically mandated that he bring in 2 ounces every time he brought in his dope. And that's the way it was. There was nothing that Pelon could really say about it. Again, you can't challenge authority. You can't, you can't debate it. You can't, there's nothing that you can say about it. If they want to take a hard line position against you like that, that's what they're going to do. And that's what they did with Pelon. But now here's the kicker. Pelon wasn't a baller. He wasn't a baller. Again, I told you guys in the beginning of the story, he was just somebody that was just trying to make a little bit of extra money just so that he could have some bread to get by and maybe send a little bit back to his lady. He did not have a cell phone. He didn't have a cell phone. So all his communications were done over the prison's recorded phone, the blue phones. And, because there was so much going on with this situation, the dope getting sent there that wasn't supposed to get sent there, how much it was, it forced him and his lady to talk, to say things more than, they probably wanted to say. They probably engaged in a lot more, conversation than they probably wanted to. And because of that, they tried to talk between the lines. But the bottom line is this. If your lady isn't, established, if you guys don't have a code, she doesn't know carnival talk, how to talk like that. If she can understand you, 9 times out of 10, ISU that's listening to those phone calls, those recorded phone calls, then they can understand you. And that's exactly what was happening. They're sitting back, they're listening to these conversations, and, they hear everything. They hear the concern in Pelon's voice, him feeling like he's in a bad position, like they might kill him out there on the yard. They know that the dope is being mailed to his lady's house. They know that she's bringing it in through the visiting. So what they ended up doing was they snatched Pelon up. They snatched him up, took him to the hole. They end up going to her house. They raided her house. They got a search warrant. They went in. They found the dope. They found, the mailing information, the address. They ended up taking her kids. They charged her. They took her to jail. They slapped a case on her, and it was all bad. Well, from that point on, when you take a lot of times, when cops go after women like this in situations like this, especially gang cases, they hype it up, and the first thing they tell them is, we're going to take your kids. You're going to lose your kids. You're never going to see them again. And that's exactly what they did to her. She would end up cooperating. She cooperated, and Pelon, once they pressed Pelon and they told him, look, man, we got you on video call, talking about bringing in all this dope. You were talking about a major drug smuggling operation that involved the Mexican mafia. Once they heard that the Mexican mafia was involved, it took on a life of its own. Now the case is hyped up. They're probably talking about, you're looking at another 100 years. They probably told his girl, you're looking at 30 to 40 years if you don't cooperate. So that's what they did. Pelon ended up cooperating. He dropped out. That was it for him right there. His girl, she ended up cooperating. What they did was they ended up going to her house. They moved all her stuff out, loaded it up one night, put it in the truck, and moved her across state somewhere. So that's what ended up happening. Not only that, but they also went into the prison. Outside agencies went in. They did a major search, like they kind of did in the county jail when I was there. The agency came in that was prosecuting the case. They searched, and they ended up having ISU or gang intel or squad, I believe it was squad, from like 3 or 4 other different institutions come in and snatch up a bunch of people. From my understanding, Raul from Wilmas was one of the ones that got snatched up. Once he got snatched up, I think Weddle Smooth was the next one to slide up in there at Ironwood. So he was there with Chato from Laverne. But anyways, you know, there's a lot of different messages in this story right here. You know, the main one I think that jumps out at me is don't ever get your family involved in running drugs or, you know, facilitating communications or, you know, meeting somebody, a three-way phone drop, nothing. I learned early on when I was just a young NR member not to do that because I seen what other people were going through, other homeboys, what they were going through. And I vowed never to let that happen to any of my loved ones. I never put them in harm's way. And that's what you're doing. You have your lady running in dope for the Mexican mafia, for anybody. You know, you're putting her in harm's way. Look what happened. Their whole life got uprooted. She ended up having to move. They almost took her kids. Pelon, his career ended. Now he's got a major target on his back. You know, there was a lot of fallout behind just this right here. And again, you know, you got to look at this. Look at how much emphasis they put on that, on the clavo. That clavo is everything. Again, I understand that it's a criminal organization. It has to generate money to take care of its own. But unfortunately, when, you know, you have these different ways of making money or bringing in dope or, you know, investing in criminal activity, these types of things right here will eat people up, eat the homies up, especially just, you know, the norteños or the sureños that end up getting caught up. They'll eat them up and spit them out without a second thought. That's just the way it is. If you're somebody that gets in the way or you interfere with clavo that's coming in, or you don't bring it in, you piss somebody off, you're done. Your career is over. And, you know, there's a lot of guys that push hard lines when it comes to that, and they're justified. They're justified because they'll make it that way. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this story. This is another cold story that ended another good Sureño's career. How many good Sureños are sitting back on these yards, you know, like some of you said in the comments, because of bad situations that they were put in. You know, it's discouraging. I'm sure it's discouraging hearing about it. But anyways, let's see if I can get out an Inner Demons tonight. We'll see. If not, I'll get it out to you guys tomorrow. I hope you guys enjoyed this story. Drop your comments. Let me know what you think about it. Let me know what you think about these stories. This your boy B, and I'm out.